unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
You know what you are? You're gay. You wish. You're dumb. You wish. You're an idiot. You wish. You wish. I was just thinking about this today, and you wish might be the most poignant and perfect response for just about any accusation. It is totally safe to assume that it is correct. It is an honest and correct response. You wish. And I know I've talked about this recently a lot, but projection is such a thing now. I guess it's always been a thing. It's just becoming such a public thing now. You know? If you look at Facebook or social media, I mean, or legacy media right now, almost all of it is filled with fantastic projections of what people wish. You know, I read an article today on Facebook and got into a subsequent little exchange with somebody about how 350 shrinks, psychologists agree that Donald Trump is cracking. He's descending into madness. Why? Because of the impeachment hearings. You wish. It would be the appropriate response to that. You know? 350 alleged psychologists, alleged people with degrees, educated, sanctioned, or not sanctioned, but approved professionals, apparently, have broken with their code of professionalism and of ethics in their already dubious field to diagnose Donald Trump, who I assume is not one of their clients. But yet they have diagnosed him anyway. Why? For our safety. He's mad. He's going crazy. He's cracking. And you know, there have been just hundreds of articles like this over the last 2 years. Just all these projections onto Donald Trump about his current state. Of course, in this conversation, you got to just go, that's not how the profession even works, if you can even call it a profession. It's basically like legitimized psychics. What's that? What would you call that profession? The profession that psychics have. It's a way to legitimize it. But I know that if you actually get into the profession, they have codes, you know, where you're not supposed to diagnose strangers from afar, you know. And I believe, having been raised by a shrink, I don't know, but it seems to me that a good qualified shrink doesn't really take a lot of time trying to guess at the inner mind of another person, but rather they ask a lot of questions, with the goal being that the client reveals their inner mind on their own and hopefully in some way manages to work things out by maybe verbalizing and examining their own thoughts. I don't know that they're. Who can you take seriously if they claim to actually know what somebody's thinking? You know, no matter what we do, we're projecting. No matter what, I'm doing it now. Even in thinking how a shrink might think about his client, I'm just imagining what I would think if I were in that situation. I can't know how they are thinking. I can only think how I would think in that situation. I can pretend to be another person. I can be a character. I can change my voice and try to inhabit the thoughts and mindset of another person and behave according to that. That's called acting. It's pretending. It's also fun, and it might also be helpful when it comes to dealing with one's own feelings of empathy. But does it mean much? 350 professional psychiatrists agree. So 350 people who have broken their code of ethics and codes of professionalism have signed their names to diagnose a non-client from afar. That sounds to me more like a story, a fantasy written for an audience of like minds. People that hate Donald Trump. It's basically an article to which the most appropriate response is, "You wish." What a great response. You wish. Try it. I mean, it really works. It's like, it just boils down the absurdity of it all. Because, and we all, I'll speak for myself, but we get wrapped up. I have been wrapped up so many times in my life where I'm suddenly in a conversation where by being there, I'm validating and acknowledging the fantasies that have already gone on with others. I think that's every time somebody makes any sort of accusation or attempts to tell you how you think, or how you feel. How many times has somebody tried to tell you what you think? They observe you doing something, or they hear you say something, and then they say, well, you just think that this, which is basically another way of saying you wish. The difference being is that when you say you wish, what you're really doing is just holding up a mirror to what they've actually said. You don't even have to add or reinterpret anything that they've said. You literally just say, you wish. I wish what? Well, everything that you just said. Nothing more, nothing less. It effectively throws it back and says, that is your opinion. It's not even an opinion, though. It's a wish. It's a wish. It's a hope. I mean, I suppose you could argue that somebody could make an accusation that they hope is not true, but I doubt it. I mean, think of the people that are accusing Donald Trump of being amoral, immoral, in it for his own ends, incompetent, stupid, a buffoon, evil, you name it, Nazi, racist, blah, blah, blah. Are any of those people, when you hear somebody making these accusations, have you ever thought about that person? Does it ever seem like they hope it's not true? You know what I mean? Has it ever seemed like they would be happy to find out that it wasn't true? Like, Were any of them happy to find out that their Mueller report found out nothing about Donald Trump conspiring with Putin? Were any of them happy that he wasn't in bed with Putin? Or would they have rather their fantasies been fulfilled? And of course, I'm asking you to project what you think about their fantasies right now. But the question is when you say you wish, can anybody, how often would the retort to that quip be, no, actually, I don't wish. I hope it's not true. Hardly ever, I think. Hardly ever. I think most of the time when people project their fantasies, they do wish it was true. Homophobe. You wish. Wait, I don't wish. Ah, but do you? I don't know. Why did you call me a homophobe? Based on pretty much nothing, that I called something gay. Racist. You wish. Gets weird, huh? When you consider the idea that people are wishing or seem to be wishing for terrible things to be true. They are hoping to validate not good fantasies, but bad ones. And that's kind of why that phrase, that response, you wish, is usually used sort of defensively. But it's a great defense because it's an offense, right? Because you're just basically turning their accusation or their thesis back on them. That's your fantasy. And it is. It is. I mean, barring that they present evidence or facts, it's just you wish is the most appropriate way to deal with it. It's just totally accurate. But weird when it comes to the dark side of things. You don't hear people saying, you wish, after people give compliments. You know what? You're a really nice person. I like your hairstyle, and I think you're dynamite. You wish. Start doing that. When somebody gives you a compliment or says something nice, say you wish afterwards. Let's see how that works out. Anyway, it's kind of a difficult topic because I think it's just really hard to avoid getting sucked up in that game. I think we are naturally empathetic in that there's really no other recourse. There's really no other way to be. Since we can't crawl around in somebody else's body and their mind, we naturally just project our own experiences onto others. We see ourselves in them, for good and for bad. But I think maybe more likely for bad for one team and for good for another team. And again, I'm just extending the last podcast, because it's a real topic of thought these days for me, and just how insane it is. How I've just seemed to find two different types of people in the world. Those who project goodness onto others, or at least by and large do, and those who, in the sum total of things, project bad things onto others. Bad fantasies, bad wishes. And it seems to be that there's a battle between those two, and I don't quite know how do you resolve that? How do you resolve that? How do you take a person who's projecting ill and bad thoughts onto others. I guess the question is because it kind of comes down to self-loathing at a certain point, you know? And that's to me what the difference is between a globalist or a communist or a collectivist of any sort and an individualist. I think an individualist probably errs on the side of good, projecting good. I'm an individualist. I believe people should be treated as individuals, and that kind of infers or implies that that person has faith in others, which is a projection. It's saying, well, I have faith in myself, so I will project that onto others. Whereas a communist or a socialist or any other type of collectivist does not have faith in the individual and somehow believes that the collective is the only way to do it. Where they derive this faith out of all the decisions coming together is beyond me. But they are more likely to say 350 phony shrinks agree. In other words, the number. If it was 1,000, 2,000, 7 billion, whatever, because there's this weird disdain for the individual or non-faith in the individual, and it's easy to just kind of assume that that person, being an individual with those feelings, has no faith in themselves or a hatred for themselves, and therefore they project that onto others. It's kind of an attempt to get rid of self or deal with themselves. It's kind of mind-boggling shit, really, if you think about it. But it just seems to be like, I mean, obviously there's shades in between, perhaps, because we have on different philosophies, in different moods, sometimes we do project good things onto other individuals and maybe not. But my point is I'm kind of dumbfounded of how to deal with these people. I've gone on naively and ignorantly in my life, thinking that if I just explained it the right way, that I would turn these communists or collectivists into individualists. But it's just not that easy, because what I'm now realizing is what you're having to deal with is people's inner hatred, their own self-loathing. I have self-loathing too, but I think in the sum total of it, I like myself more than I hate myself. You know what I mean? And just that little percentage point. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what we're dealing with. Maybe we're just dealing with this, just a tipping point. That we just need to nudge people over. Can we? Is it possible? Am I able to ever nudge somebody away from their self-hatred, their self-loathing, that they project onto others in the form of collectivism and anti-individualism? Am I ever able? And if I am, how do I do it? And does that require hand-holding so that people develop a sense of trust and love for themselves, like a real one? I don't know. I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, because that whole self-love thing too ends up being difficult too, because the only way I think a person can develop self-love is through accomplishment. It's why I make art. I think you draw a picture, you make something, you build something, so you can stand away from it and go, look, I have value, I made that. I'm not so bad. And I think that's kind of how most people are. You have to be able to create and produce something that's beautiful in order to find love for yourself, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure. But there's something in there. And I think that's the battle. Trying to get people to wish well upon people they don't like, rather than wishing ill upon pretty much everyone. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for listening.